The recording is on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this discussion. We have multiple leaders from different industry. We'll be talking about on different topics, and I'll introduce each and every leader one by one with their name and the topics they will be talking about. And the video will be available from our company's social media for the audience to ask additional questions because we will be touching it on a higher level. So first we have Chan DeBeer. He's the business advisor and non-executive director for DCV Global Recruitment. He will be speaking about building and scaling companies and teams from inception. Welcome, Chan. We have
Thank you.
Tony Stoikova. She's the Chief Revenue Officer for DCV Global Recruitment. She will be talking about once the businesses are built and how to select and how do we generate and retain revenue through a holistic approach involving all customer-facing departments. Welcome, Tony. Uh,
Yeah,
we we also have Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown is the cybersecurity business leader and also an advisor to DCV Global Recruitment. He'll be touching and discussing and focusing on enablers as the key strength for growth. And he'll be touching cybersecurity and diversity and inclusion pieces. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
And my name is Rehan Malik. I'm the founder and CEO of Itkan Leadership Strategia. I'll be higher level touching the importance of organization leadership and also some key points under that intentional leaders and leadership development and how what's the importance of relationship of a leader with the team members and impact of a great vision. So welcome everyone once again. Let's start this discussion. It will be quick 5 to 7 minutes uh, talk by each members. So I'll pass it to Chan so that he can start start us off. Over to you,
Yeah,
Chan.
thanks, Rehan. Thank you. Hi, everyone. When Rehan spoke to me about this, I was just thought I'll just revert back to when I started my own businesses back in 1995, and how we sort of grew from 3 people to 1,200 people, and what issues we had, and why we suddenly started growing, and then sort of associate that to the current businesses we currently have in recruitment and so on and so forth. Each of those have been in organic growth. And when Rehan sort of posed this question to me, saying, how when do you grow and how do you grow and how do you scale with growth? It sort of set me back, and I was thinking, wow, what did we do? We didn't really think of these things at that point because in early 90s it was Y2K, so we had no choice but to grow, and I think everyone was growing because there was a amazing opportunity there. And so we jumped on the bandwagon, and what we what we then didn't know and what we know now in these businesses were we grew because there was a huge demand and the industry was growing. So that was one sort of a key point for us to understand when to grow. However, at that point we just grew because it was already there. Um, and through organic growth, we just continued growing, and all of a sudden, from three people, it was few hundred, and then 1,200 people, and it wasn't really, it was growing up in a massive sort of a tangent uphill. So what we didn't know then was the leaders we need to have within the organization should really fall into one main category. As most of you guys know, in the game of business, you got finite players and infinite players, and we wanted to have we didn't understand the difference between this. Now we do. So finite players are just if you take a game, for instance, rugby or football, you got set rules and you play for 80 minutes or you play for 90 minutes in the case of football. And you know the players are going to go in there and they're just there to win. That's it. Once you win, what's next? Um, but you have a set of infinite players. It's probably showing my age. You go into a Zumba class or something. They're there to, to not that I take part in Zumba classes, but you go into one of those, fitness studios, and then you see a whole group of guys on bikes or whatever. They're pacing at their own level, but their key thing is to stay in the game. Yeah, it's not to, there aren't winners or losers. It's very similar to a Cold War, like Simon Sinek said. So what I wanted was, I mean, before if I knew this, I would have looked at people who fall into the infinite leadership role to have as leaders who can actually then work together, who can look at key areas of strengths, key areas of business, whether it's sales, marketing, operations, or in-house development of staff, etc., and so on and so forth, um, where then they work together to be in the game and then grow as an organization. So that's a key difference we've actually made in the previous business and the current businesses we have. um, that then led to, right, okay, you have a good bunch of people, good leaders, they are all in the game together. And how do you know when to grow? And then again, through some real examples of what sort of helped us and not go under in times of recession and credit crunch, etc., was that we always had a idea and a very very clear view of what our profitability is, what our EBITDA is, what is our cash flow, because it's when your company is growing and when you have lots of people joining the organization, as I said, from 3 to a few hundred, we were all so excited. Wow, our company is huge. We got so many people in there. But if our profitability is low, our cash flow is at a point where one or two key clients delay payments, that can easily take your company under. So it's suddenly you're scaling to this growth in the industry because the industry is growing. You're excited, so you're bringing lots of people, and then suddenly this is just going to tip you over and you're going to go under. And it's understanding those factors just really helped us grow steadily and also sustain that growth. And out of that, we managed to retain most of the key players within the organization, and that really helped. And yeah, that's there's no rocket science to rather than other than that. It's mostly lots of common sense. You just derive out and just take it into your hands and take control of it. If your cash flow is steady and your industry you're in is growing, and then if there is demand and your customers are coming to you and asking for more, then you must be doing something great and something really good. And if you can then take a few steps back and understand why is it that your customers coming to you, why are they buying from you for all these years? I know we got a good smile, we are friendly people, they like us, but that's not the reason they're buying, right? They're buying because you're providing a valuable service. So if you can then really understand your key selling points, key value proposition, your actual, I hate to use this word, but USP, right? The reasons your customers are buying from you, and now they are creating demand for you because they're coming to you and asking for more. So suddenly you got an opportunity here to grow in many ways. One, you can scale as an organization, but you can home in on your profitability, look at how you can service all these new clients you're bringing in. You can prioritize, that will raise your value. You can demand um, a higher value for the service you're offering, because you're helping those organizations grow as well. And so you got a number of things happening then in parallel, where you're looking at growing your profitability as well as your revenue as well as your organization in order to scale and support, was continuing to keep an eye on your cash flow and the key aspects of your business that will help you not go under. um, and then, if you, I'm sorry, I'm just sort of going from point to point, but it's just I'm talking through what I have done in the past and what's worked for me. And so you got the profitability under control. You're growing because the industry is growing. You're growing now because the customers are asking for more. So you're bringing more employees or creating more products, whichever way your organization is set up. Then you also look at customer growth. How do you bring new customers in? What aspects can you look at and go after bringing new names, new brands to buy from you? And what we did, was quite simple strategy we had. We looked at our key clients. We looked at why they're buying. We understood that, like I mentioned before. And then we also looked at who are they associated with, who's supplying to them. So if I'm providing a service, that service is valuable for my customer. And then they have other suppliers providing similar products to what my customer is developing, then they also might need my service. And if my customer is satisfied and they're really recommending me, then I would want to go to those clients and open them up. And that'll help me. So we started developing this matrix of who are our key clients, why they're buying, understanding the USP, then going into their suppliers, etc., etc. And there we started getting new brands at the same time, in this day and age, with the having a proper online presence, engaging correctly, engaging properly on social media, and just getting your brand out there. All those things came together and helped us grow. And this is it. It's there is no sort of there isn't a magic wand that you can wave and suddenly your business grows. But it's taking it systematically. It's understanding your people in the organization, creating a set of leaders who are going to grow with you, creating a set of leaders from the infinite player community rather than the finite player community is what really helped me. Um, that's sort of mainly it, Rehan, and happy to answer any questions you might have for me.
No, I think this is great, Chen, for covering it. Well, let's move to Tony, then she can move the discussion forward.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Rehan. So yeah, now that we have scaled and grown our business, what is next? How do we attain and generate more revenue in a sustainable way? And this is actually a concept that we have also implemented, that we have embraced and are still developing and are building within GCV Global Recruitment. It's a very innovative, I would say, relatively new concept, the concept of revenue operations, which means that the sales department, the sales people, the sales team is not the only team who is responsible for bringing in revenue within the company, but it's basically a collaborative mindset of all customer facing departments, all customer facing employees within your company. And that would include, of course, sales, marketing, customer success, account managers, customer service, also finance, and to a huge extent HR, because HR is they're like the ambassadors for attracting talent. So that's what we believe in within DCV. We believe that growing and retaining revenue is something that we all need to put efforts into, and that all these departments, they should not operate in silos, but they should be very well connected with each other, because only then you achieve a sustainable growth. So this is what we've built. We're trying to even further build within our company, and we do this in two main ways. One of the ways we do this is by creating a company culture within the organization that really promotes that sort of collaborative mindset, because only then we can speed up our growth, we can increase our deal closures, we can increase our productivity, we can also make our costs more efficient, we can reduce the go-to-market expenses. Basically, the cost will be reduced and the productivity will rise up. And this is when the team has that sort of mindset that they need to stick together, work together, function in a very unified way, and only then, make the revenue really quite sustainable. And the next way in which we achieve this is, of course, through a very solid strategy and a coherent tech stack. This is usually how companies, especially in the SaaS area, do that, because it is really a people's business, like sales, recruitment, marketing. That's all a people's business. But for that people related business to scale, you also need to be equipped with the right tools, you need to be equipped with the right technologies, so that you can automate processes where this is needed, and where things need to be done in a more efficient way. And by doing that, then you really scale, because then it becomes like an automated machine that is doing tasks are individualized, of course, but they are done in a very repetitive manner, which means that once the process is followed consistently on a regular basis, only then the results will come. And to sum it up, what we believe in is that we should not act independently as single players, but together as a team. And we embrace this quote. It's a well-known quote. We've probably seen it somewhere, that it should be all for one and one for revenue. And that's how we believe we can really build up a successful revenue generating strategy, not only within us, our company, but in general in every company.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony, for covering those points. Just kind of moving one by one. So just watching the time so that everybody gets their pieces in, and then we can jump into more discussion if time permits. So thanks, Tony, once again. I'll move to Kevin. Kevin.
Thanks, Rihan. So I'm going to pick up on a couple of bits, but first of all, I'm just going to link back to Tony's RevOps approach, which I think is a fantastic model. And I think this is all organizations need to just absorb what was said there, in that it's no longer a case that growth is down to the sales team or the revenue team. Everybody has a key role to play in helping delight your customers. So first and foremost, I think what RevOps model instills is for everybody in your organization to understand how they can touch, how they can influence the customers, and how they can delight, because rest assured, they all play a key role. And as we look at growth, as sort of Chan mentioned early on, is really understanding the strengths of your organization. So I'm just going to take that a little bit further and just translate that into enablers for growth, because sometimes you don't necessarily see what you already have. And this is where I think a deeper understanding of your enablers for growth. So I'm going to touch on two that are very close to my heart. First, of course, cybersecurity. I come from a long background of cybersecurity, so it'd be remiss of me not to mention it. And also diversity and inclusion. But cybersecurity. Now, we all see the headlines. I dare say many people are scared of the headlines day in, day out. But sadly, cybersecurity in many organizations is just seen as a cost to their business, versus something that perhaps they can immediately and directly relate to growth. Now, my ask of everybody is to sort of step back from that, and regardless of the size of your organization, to say, well, how can you look at this differently? How can you see cybersecurity as one of your enablers? It's quite easy, I think. Your end customers are putting trust in you. They are trusting you with their crown jewels in many cases, data. So therefore, how you can demonstrate, how you can visibly show that you are putting greater emphasis on protecting their crown jewels, their data, is going to be a massive differentiator for your growth story. There's been numerous consumer surveys that have been conducted over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, and there is one clear message that is landing all the time, is that consumers, customers are more likely to do business with yourself if they've got the confidence that you're going to better protect their data over your competitor. So therefore, the message here is, how can your cybersecurity and the protection of your organization form a really strong part of your growth plan? Not, here's my growth plan, here's my security plan over here. Your security plan has got to be intrinsically embedded in the growth plan for your organization. And I'm pretty confident that that is going to help you grow, it's going to help you differentiate. More importantly, it's going to keep you out of the newspaper headlines as well. Now, the second one, I want to talk about diversity and inclusion. I'm sure it's a topic that each and every one of us are passionate about, and we could spend many hours discussing this. Diversity and inclusion, I think, is a critical enabler in so many ways. Personally, however, I still think that the diversity side is still favoured over the inclusivity side. And I think it's the inclusivity where the difference really does come, where you're building an organisation, but more importantly, you've built an organisational culture, which is enabling everyone to truly thrive and help with your growth story. Very similar to security, though, how does your diversity and inclusion approach become an enabler to growth? Clearly, the diversity of your workforce is going to help you grow naturally. The diversity of thinking, the diversity of problems, of problem solving, and the outlook is absolutely endless. But how are you going to articulate that to your customers? How are you going to show that you've really invested in not just the diversity and showing that you've built a diverse workforce, but more importantly, you've built a culture that is going to be truly inclusive and enable people to thrive? Chan mentioned earlier on that when your customers really get that feel that they like you, they're going to stay with you, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stay with you forever. And this, I think, through diversity and inclusion, is demonstrating how you're building an inclusive and different workforce. Means that you're not just going to be staying doing what you're doing in the hope that they stay with you. It means that you're investing in your future in so many ways. So really think about how you're going to articulate that. And in fact, many customers now ask that that's a prerequisite, but long before you can even start bidding for work. But don't be reactive. I would encourage everyone to be really proactive around how you're approaching diversity and inclusion, and how it's helping you get ahead of the game. And it's going to put your strategy and brand in a sort of a different light. So I think in summary, our job as leaders, one of the jobs as us as leaders, is to be really clear on how we see the enablers for growth, not just today, but for tomorrow, and to fit with our strategy. And then really to articulate that in our vision really clearly, that our teams are able to talk about it, our teams can thrive around the enablers for growth as part of our strategy, that is going to see us deliver that longer term sustainable growth. So Rehan, back to you, and that's just a couple of thoughts from myself.
This is great. Thank you, Kevin, for covering that. Amazing points from everyone. So I picked up like a little bit higher topic also to kind of touch, and we can dive in a little bit in detail, is the importance of organization leadership. Like why it's important. So I mean, if you're talking about that organization is nothing more than a set of different individuals coming together to provide services and solutions for a set vision, then we have to really think about the engagement, and the relationship between these individuals. Any individual who joins the company, as Chen says, like in the start, like if you're starting a company and if you're hiring people, they're pretty much sold on the services and the product which you're providing and the vision. Like the first day they join, they are like looking for that like execution, like how you execute it. Where are my leaders? Like how they manage. What's the the chemistry between the team members, between the leaders. So that's where the leadership teams like pretty much has to be like engaged, and they know that they're not asking like the individuals you're hiring, they're not actually asking it, but they are asking it, right? They're asking like some of the major questions is like, okay, I I I know my skill set. I'm here to engage. I'm sold on the vision. My leader is at doing anything to grow me? That is the question they're asking. So we have to, like, as a leader, we have to intentionally pretty much thinking about that are we answering those questions? The other question they're asking is, can I trust whoever I'm reporting to? Leader from starting from leadership towards the member. Is that the culture we are setting up while the new talent is kind of walking in into the company? These are all pretty much like core responsibility of leaders. We cannot say that they should ask or they should why don't they tell us? They will not, right? That's not their job. That's our anybody in the senior leadership position. That's their job, and that is the difference between, and that key factor is the difference between if the talent who walks into the company, if they stay long term, or we're gonna lose them, because I mean, uh, if they're feeling that okay, there's no growth, there's no connection, then there is a chance that they will be, although they are sold with the vision, they're sold with the services, but they're like, okay, how I'm gonna provide my services to the best of my ability if those are the things are not there, if I'm not growing. The other two most important question a leader should be asking is, are we developing leaders, or are we developing just the resources to do the job? And the whole philosophy changed. Like if you're thinking like, okay, we have the resources, but we are developing them as a leader. You're already creating like a path for them, like 5 year, 6 year, 10 years path. And that kind of makes them more engaged. Like whatever the questions they're asking kind of pretty much embedded in there. If they get the response that no, they're not developing the leader, they just want my resources, want my services as a resource, there is a huge chance that you'll lose like talents of the industry, and they will be transitioning. So retention of the talent pretty much based on how you are engaging, what's your relationship with the team members, how you're moving these things forward. So those are some of the key points which I wanted to touch, because I'm kind of pretty much engaged with different companies with the senior leadership teams, and how you think about it pretty much change how you establish your culture. If the thought process is that we are just hiring a resource just to do that job, then the engagement with the resources or with the whole team members will be like that. If you're engaging, and if the mindset is no, we are hiring it like to do the job, but we have a long-term plan for this particular resource to build them and develop them as a leader in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years lifespan, then the engagement and your approach kind of dictate that. So your teams will not be not be quiet quitters, or these are like different terminologies comes up, which is pretty much embedded in how you are leading them and how you're moving them forward and whatnot. Um, the other point, the last point, which I put it at the end, is the impact of a vision. Like we could have talked about it in the start, but I intentionally put it at the last, because like once you have a team, like you have different units, uh, your vision, the company's vision needs to be really powerful, and it should be bigger than any member sitting in the leadership team. It should long live anyone in the leadership. leadership team. Once it's clear, then it will be easier for the units, for different units, for different teams to align their efforts towards that. If it's not clear, if it's vague, or if it's not that big, if it's not huge, and if it's associated with different individual leadership team members' vision, the execution and the effort will be a challenge, because what will going to happen on the unit level is their ongoing challenges will become their vision, and we will be talking about, okay, why it's not aligned. It's not aligned because the vision is not clear, and the each and every day to day, 6 months, 4 months, whatever the challenges they're facing, it's becoming their vision. So it's really important for a leader to create and paint a greater picture of the vision and keep aligning the effort with that particular vision, so the clarity is there, and there's like a clear path for everyone to provide their services towards that vision. So those are a few pieces I wanted to touch. I think I'm on time, but we still have 10-15 minutes because we kind of rushed through everyone, so that I wanted to save some time at the end. If there is other questions coming up in anybody's mind based on the topic, we can throw questions to each other and we can discuss it, so that it can create a bit more value on everyone's topic. So
Okay. I mean, the first thing was that it was it was really interesting to see we all coming from sort of quite different backgrounds, and but the theme and the thoughts which is coming out of each of the discussions align quite well with at least what I had in mind, how to grow a business, and especially what Rehan, what you were saying from a leadership point of view, it is absolutely key. Even you know when you start your business and you start bringing people in, you start leading, and if you don't have that in the back of your mind, that there is, you want to retain these people who are you're investing your time as well as they're investing their time in your business. If you don't retain them, it's a wasted effort, because you're just having that resource for a bit of their skills, and then you lose them, then you start again, and then it goes on. But it's a key aspect for sure, that leadership. And also, exactly the bit what Tony was talking about. Once you start growing your business, and how do you really look at each of the departments, or each of the functions in the organization, to generate revenue, how you look at those strategies. That was quite key as well for our growth. And then finally, what Kevin was saying, diversity and inclusion. It's just so key in business growth. It's one, it helps stabilize your business internally to grow, as well as that aligns very well with your clients who are like-minded, who are also growing with the same sort of concept. So yeah, it was really interesting listening to all three of you. That was great. Thank you.
I think if I can just pick up on the discussion around talent, and look, I've had sort of 20 years in law enforcement, 10 years in industry, working for sort of the largest FTSE companies, and talent is something that's always been at the forefront of my mind, and I've always taken a personal responsibility as a leader to make sure that I'm growing and generating talent. And I think part of this comes back from a leadership perspective is investing in those authentic relationships with the talent.
100%.
Is yes, everybody wants a plan, but if the plan is not going to be backed, it's not authentic. It's easy to say, right, here's an A4 sheet, this is what your development plan looks like. But generally showing how you invested, how you can contribute, I think makes a difference. But more importantly, it's the benefit that you get in really helping the talent thrive, giving them the space to be able to lead, continue, develop, and ultimately contribute to the vision. And I think that's the sort of difference between having talent that's going to continue to grow versus lots of people that perhaps have hired talent only to see, as you said earlier, Rehan, only to see those people then leave. It's no different to a professional sports person where Yes, they may start being a member of a certain club, but rest assured, if they're not given the ability to train to be match fit, they're going to be two things: they're either going to leave, or the skill that they have is soon going to deteriorate. So I think investment in a sort of authentic relationships to help sort of continue to grow and spot talent.
100%. Great. Tony?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I stand 100% behind what everybody said. And the topic that is really quite close to my heart and quite dear to me, and which you mentioned, is are we developing leaders, or are we just developing resources? Are we just using the person's resources to get what needs to be done? And I think this is really, really key, because if we want to be long-term thinking, if we want to build a sustainable business, if we want to build a sustainable revenue generation strategy and a solid team in the long term, we do need to be developing people as opposed to just viewing them as resources. So yeah, it's just people's empowerment. Because, and another quote which I really, really like is, you don't build a business, you build teams, and then the teams build the business. You build people, and the people build the business. So that's what I think we should be focusing on at the very, very first place. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's and just to going back to Chance and Kevin and Tony's work point, like one of the things which I kind of remember, like my first job out of the university was with Abbott Pharmaceuticals. So over there, I get, and I shared this example with a lot of my other clients as well, because the response when I'm doing this leadership development training, like the response is like totally on a different tangent. I'm like, what are we discussing here? Like we have to invest time in the resources. We cannot hire, you cannot hire yourself towards success. It's like, if the mentality is that, oh, there's always a resource and talent is available, well, it takes time. If your resource is going to hire that talent to train them and again move, like, let's say 6 months, 8 months, and that resource left again. So I use that example. Like I was like the first, like really, like after my bachelor's I got in Abbott, and Abbott, like there's like different technology stacks we were working. I changed industry after that as well, intentionally, so that I can have exposure from a leadership and a strategy perspective from different industry. But this is an example specific to the pharmaceutical. Like, they have this like chemical engineer who's working for the company, like for, let's say, 8 years, but they are pretty much paying him to go for the to complete his law degree, so that he can support in the patent challenges and all, because he understands the business inside out. So this person is not going anywhere. They're investing in this person. This person is sold with the vision of the company. He's providing his services, and he's saying that the company is investing on me for me to grow, and how I can deploy my skill set further. So whenever I listen to the quiet quitting, and I think the main reason is the lack of investing, the lack of relationship, as Kevin mentioned, and Chan and Tony also touched it. That there's something going on over there. Otherwise, if you are engaged, uh, it's really hard for a person to leave the company. And even if they're leaving, like, you should have a very productive conversation. Let's say if the person grows, then it should be a smooth transition. Like, all of us are, running different companies. Maybe we are engaged in different companies. Sometimes the resources develop so fast that you have to move the resources from one company to another, because they're kind of more valuable. So, but all those things you can start tapping into once you change your mindset, that we have to build something along those lines. If you're not doing that, the challenge is out there. Because if the question is, oh, this person or this team members is just reporting to me, we are just getting the service. Well, the opposite is also true. They can provide that services to anywhere else. Why they should stay?
Mm.
So those are like, it's a back and forth. But yeah, I'm really passionate about this. So I'm just touching it on that. Any other piece, guys, which we wanna touch? We have 4 more minutes. We are still on doing great on time.
Yeah, time management has been quite good today for this meeting. No, but I think maybe we can. I mean, from my side, I'm all good. I think maybe we can leave it also for the viewers to address some questions they may have, and they can reach out to us on LinkedIn. So yeah, we'll be happy to answer any further questions there are.
The only final, just quick bit from myself is we talked about talent and how we can help talent grow. But as individual leaders as well, just reflect on the personal satisfaction that you get when you know that you've identified, helped grow talent, and just seen them flourish within an organization. Same with building a diverse and inclusive organization is there is so much personal satisfaction and motivation that you get as well, which you just can't put down in words. I think it's unbelievable, and I've always been proud and always thrived on the moments where you've really seen that talent flourish and seen them go on to, in many ways, greater things as well.
And that's something you can't buy.
Absolutely.
You can't buy, and it grows with the company. And it's interesting, the example what Rehan gave. In fact, we done exactly that within in an organization. It's our accountant who wanted to do a law degree, and he's now we got an amazing animal who's got accountancy knowledge as well as legal knowledge, and it's absolutely lethal. But at the same time, he's been with us for 16 years, and it's absolutely that's so true, exactly what get. But the satisfaction you get that you helped grow team and talent, and also the company grows as a result. So totally aligned with what you're saying.
All right, this is great. Love it. Yeah, I mean, it's like not only like building like leaders, building like leaders, but also uh, like leadership, like developing themselves as well. And it takes a lot of courage. Like the courage is the basic attributes whenever I kind of get engaged. Like all the other attributes pretty much built at the top. Like if you have to build someone with and give them the ability to do something in your absence, you need a lot of courage, and that's how you build leaders, right? So it just like those discussion comes again and again whenever I engaged in any level training and engagement. So it's fascinating stuff. Okay, I think so. Thank you, everyone. I think the video will gonna end soon. I'll wrap it up. I'll save the video, but this will be available for everyone online on our from our company's different social media to ask questions. And thank you everyone for your time, and thank you for an amazing discussion today.
Thank you, Rehan, for
You
organizing.
too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all. Thanks.